Just past dawn Friday, more than a half-century after the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. stood on the Lincoln Memorial's marble steps and offered his vision for a fair and righteous America, thousands of protesters descended on the nation's capital at the end of a summer that has laid bare just how distant the fulfillment of his vision remains. Among them was Marilyn Boddy, 62, who had never attended a protest. As a decades-long federal employee, Boddy had always been reluctant to join in public demonstrations, but that changed when she heard the Reverend Al Sharpton eulogize George Floyd, who died in May beneath the knee of a Minneapolis police officer. "It was right there, in the emotion of that moment, that I knew I would be here today," Boddy said, describing the anger and anguish that shot through her while watching the televised service from her New Jersey living room. On Friday, 200 miles south, she wore a mask inscribed with "Black Lives Matter," and a red t-shirt featuring the same words, surrounded by the faces of 11 dead black men and women: Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Trayvon Martin, Sandra Bland, Tamir Rice, Mike Brown, Eric Garner, Sean Bell, Jordan Davis, Rayshard Brooks and Breonna Taylor. "We are sick and tired," she said, surveying the crowd swelling behind her. "At this point, I'd crawl over glass to be here." It had been exactly 57 years since King spoke about his dream of unity, but also warned, in words quoted far less often, that the whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. It had been 3 months since those foundations were shaken yet again, this time in the furious, fiery aftermath of Floyd's killing. It had been 6 weeks since the death of civil rights icon and Georgia Congressman John Lewis, who had been the last living speaker at the original March on Washington, where the then 23-year-old had told the crowd, we are tired of being beaten by policemen." It had been 5 days since a Kenosha, Wisconsin, officer shot Jacob Blake in the back, paralyzing him in front of his children. It had been 3 days since, investigators say, a white teenage vigilante with an AR-15 gunned down 2 men who had confronted him on a night of chaotic protests in Kenosha. It had been 2 days since the country's greatest athletes refused to take courts and fields, to entertain a country that, to many of them, did not value their black lives as much as white ones. And it had been less than 24 hours since President Trump accepted the Republican Party's nomination from the South Lawn of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, transforming the People's House, fortified behind concrete barriers and high metal fences, into a campaign prop. Trump gave a speech laced with falsehoods to a tightly packed crowd of more than 1,500 people, almost none wearing masks in the middle of a pandemic.